Hi, Lion Recaps here. Today I'm going to explain Bajrangi Bhaijaan. Spoiler alert, fun fact is this movie was the second highest grossest Indian movie ever. So brace yourself for a spectacle. It's also filmed in the Hindi language. First off, we see a group of people enjoying a cricket match. They're in support of the Pakistani team. Apparently, they're Pakistani villagers gathered around the only TV in their village. There's a pregnant woman in front, and her baby kicks. She decides she will name her Rashida after the star cricket player. It's 6 years later, and Rashida has grown into a beautiful but curious girl. She's playing with her little wheel when it breaks and starts to run down the hill. She chases it until she falls off a cliff but is saved by an overhanging tree. That night, a search party goes out to look for her. They eventually find her at the edge of the cliff. From that day onwards, she loses her voice. An elder suggests her mother take her into India for a prayer at the temple there. So they board a train, and once in India, Rashida's mom does the necessary rites. It's late when they get back to the train, which is supposed to take them home. Everyone is asleep, but Rashida spots a little goat in distress just outside and leaves the train to save it. Sweet little girl, eh? While outside, the train starts moving. It's leaving her behind. Another train pulls up, and Rashida gets on it. But this train switches locomotives and starts to go in the opposite direction. Rashida's mother soon discovers she's missing as the train she's on crosses over into Pakistan. There's a lot of crying and desperation. But there's nothing the authorities can really do to help her. Meanwhile, it's morning, and Rashida wakes up on the train. There's a religious procession going on with a lot of people, and, mind you, a lot of colors. The kind Indians are famous for. Pawan is there too, leading a dance troupe. Bollywood movies are especially noted for their singing and dancing. This one doesn't disappoint, as I'm sure there'll be more of the sort ahead. Rashida can only look on at the fanfare, even as she's lost. Rashida singles out Pawan as someone who could help her. Pawan offers to buy her some food and promptly leaves, but Rashida follows them and wants to go with them. So they board a bus, and while on it, Pawan tries to find out Rashida's name. Remember, she's mute, so Pawan has to go through a series of names to which Rashida shakes her head to all of them. Even the passengers join in. After a while, Pawan starts to tell them his story, especially how he was not very good at school due to his father's dislike, and also how he met his girlfriend on a bus as the conductor jumbled together their transport fare change. Pawan goes on to his destination, which is a gym. He's seeking work as a gym instructor and impresses the owner right away. Just then, the same girl on the bus from earlier comes out. She's also the daughter of the gym owner. Small world, isn't it? Her name is Rasika. Pawan gets the job, and it's not long before Rasika starts to warm up to him. For instance, they start to exchange gifts and even glances. But don't be fooled, because they're only in the friend zone. Worse yet is Rasika is already engaged in an arranged marriage, and soon enough, the groom's family comes calling. Rasika, however, prefers Pawan and makes her thoughts known to the embarrassment of everyone seated. Her father should be angry for such unexpected behavior. He excuses his guests, but then gives his daughter permission to follow her heart. So it seems all's well that ends well. Pawan has just completed his story to his fellow passengers. For clarity, all of that was Pawan giving us his life history up until now. The bus makes a stop, and Pawan is at his father-in-law's house again. As you would expect, Rasika is there too, and Pawan has brought Rashida along. And not everyone is enthusiastic about the missing girl. But then she goes missing again. They all frantically search for her. They find her at a neighbor's house having some chicken and refusing to leave. Later on, Pawan takes her to a chicken restaurant. She misses her mother and shows it. So to cheer her up, Rasika and Pawan start a chicken song, and soon everyone joins in. Dare say, it's a good display as it blends well into the storyline. Next, Pawan takes Rashida to go and pray. He tells her how to hold her hands in supplication, but she's distracted by the sounds of the mosque. And when Pawan closes his eyes, she leaves them and goes over to the mosque. Pawan goes to the mosque in search of her. He finally finds her praying in Islamic style. Rasika joins him, and they take Rashida home. That evening, there's a cricket game between India and Pakistan. You can guess who Rashida is rooting for. It seems obvious. When Pakistan eventually wins, She starts to clap happily to everyone's surprise. This is when they discover she's a Pakistani girl. This doesn't go down well with Rasika's father. As such, Rashida must be sent away or at least taken back to her home country. The father suggests she be taken to the Pakistani embassy, so Pawan does that, but there's a public demonstration in full swing when he gets there. Things soon escalate, and he and Rashida have to get the hell out of there. The father then insists that they could at least try a travel agency, so Pawan does it all over again. The travel agent can't help him directly, but rather says he can smuggle her into Pakistan. So that evening, Pawan counts all of his money and even gets some more help from Rasika. So they pay the travel agent off, and Pawan leaves Rashida in his care. It's an emotional separation that might bring tears to your eyes. As Pawan walks away, he sees something and changes his mind. He backtracks and chases down the rickshaw. He's able to trace it to a brothel. It would seem the travel agent is into human trafficking and wants to sell Rashida. Pawan finds them exchanging cash. The security guards attack him, but he knocks them out one by one and is also able to toss the dubious travel agent out the window. He carries Rashida away, and that evening, he makes up his mind to take Rashida to Pakistan himself, whatever it takes. He even goes on foot for a bit of a way before he meets someone on the dusty desert road who's willing to smuggle them into Pakistan. They use an underground tunnel that takes them to the other side of the fence. Once there, Pawan stupidly decides he'll not enter a country without the requisite papers. Duh, it isn't called smuggling for nothing, you know. Anyway, the border patrol soon finds him and Rashida. Will his honesty pay off? Not at first, because they beat him up. His excuse doesn't make any sense. But eventually, the head patrol officer grants him unofficial passage. By now, the smuggling tunnel has been destroyed, so Pawan and Rashida are in Pakistan proper. Pawan, on his part, is finding it hard to acclimatize, whereas Rashida digs into some food that she's loved all her life. But then again, why would she invite trouble by stealing a cop's handcuffs? As both she and Pawan leave the food place, the cop catches up with them and searches Pawan's bag first before moving on to Rashida's bag, where he finds his cuffs. He then confronts Pawan, and again, Pawan spills out everything, like how he has no travel papers and is only returning Rashida to her home. Yeah, right, the officer seems to say. He's subsequently taken away. Meanwhile, word has gotten to the local journalist, who's also a busybody. It's about Pawan, so he rushes to the police station to document and report on the relatively strange happening of an undocumented Indian on Pakistani soil. Inside, the officer tries to know some more about the deal between Pawan and Rashida. She soon spots a calendar picture in the office. It looks exactly like a picture of her home village. She points to it, and Pawan figures it out. But the officers don't care and try to hurt Rashida, but Pawan knocks them all out and escapes. The reporter is still outside and follows them into a bus going out of town. This is when he overhears Pawan telling the conductor about his quest and the picture calendar. The police catch up with the same bus, and it seems Pawan and Rashida are not there anymore. Actually, they're hiding on the roof of the vehicle. It's late when they get to a stop to spend the night. By morning, we see a lot of boys making fun of Pawan as he sleeps in the courtyard of a mosque, of all places. Pawan doesn't seem to want to mix religions and so goes outside to wait it out. Separately, it turns out that the calendar picture Rashida spotted was of Switzerland and not her hometown. Soon, the police come calling, but the chief is able to stall them, or at least divert their attention away and point them in another direction. Back in India, Rasika's father has just found out that Pawan has gone on a quest to Pakistan himself. Apparently, that was not what he had in mind when he told Pawan to take Rashida away. Plus, he has such a temper. The chief, on his part, has opted to take Pawan, Rashida, and the journalist out of town in his motorbike with a sidecar. Pawan and the journalist dress up in a full-on black hijab, and the imam is able to take them past a few security posts. He then drops them off so they can find their own way. At some point, Rashida is instrumental in compelling a driver to take them to the next town. It involves blocking the exhaust with a banana. Desperate measures, I suppose. It turns out the man driving them is an influential person and ends up dropping them at a police station. Of course, without suspecting anything at first. He orders one of his men to take them into town and drop them off at any place of their choosing. The journalist picks a random mosque for effect. The imam of this mosque comes out and starts to deny ever knowing his guests, but they're able to pretend their way into the mosque. Meanwhile, the head officer has soon figured out from a dispatch and sends back his men. But it's too late because Pawan with Rashida and the journalist have soon skedaddled out of there. They make their way into the beautiful countryside with the hope that perhaps they might find Rashida's real home. They also pass by many picturesque locations that would work well in a movie, or even as a calendar picture at least. At night, the journalist has an idea to call one or two TV stations for the exclusive story, but they turn him down. His old friend calls to ascertain where he is for the sake of the police. The next day, they arrive at a bustling town. Pawan takes Rashida to the mosque to listen to a musical show there. We were beginning to wonder where the music had been, as usual. There's a touching moment when we see Rashida's mother so close to seeing her daughter, but somehow Pawan covers her face with a cloth to keep the sun from burning her. The police soon arrive, and the journalist spots them while trying to upload his latest video on YouTube. He informs Pawan, and they narrowly escape being caught. Later on, the journalist reviews his YouTube video and shows it to Pawan and Rashida. In it, Rashida accidentally recognizes her mom. It seems the journalist caught her on camera by accident, leaving the bus station. Pawan gets the idea to trace the specific bus park and ask about all its possible destinations. Soon they hit the jackpot when Rashida nods her confirmation to one in particular. They're soon on their way there, but there's a checkpoint, so Pawan decides to distract the officers while the journalist and Rashida are able to escape. Ultimately, Rashida sees her home village in the distance and runs towards her mother, who's elated to see her. They run into each other's arms amid the hugging and crying. A touching song is playing that makes you want to wipe a tear. But then a loud gunshot brings the music to an abrupt stop. Elsewhere, Pawan has been shot at. This was after being beaten black and blue by the police officers. They take him to a holding cell and continue to pummel him there. Also, the videos of him and Rashida have gone viral on the internet. It manages to catch the eye of high-ranking government officials who try to ascertain the truth. Is Pawan a spy, or is he just a kind soul trying to help a little girl get back home? The overall police officer in charge of the case takes a step back to think. He's able to put two and two together. The signs are clear to him now. On his way back, the journalist gets a call for an exclusive. He gets back to where Pawan is to record and report the conclusion of the whole affair. Everybody is tuned in to watch as the journalist seizes his moment and makes a strong plea for unity in the midst of any differences. Pawan is to get back to a hero's welcome. But first, he has to cross the border on foot, irrespective of the national tensions between the two countries. Everybody rallies to witness things as they chant Bajrangi Bhaijaan, which just so happens to be the movie title. It translates to Brother Bajrangi. On the Pakistani side, he's gained some respect, and they even break the locks of the gate on his behalf. On the Indian side, Rasika and her parents are waiting in a crowd. Just then, Rashida runs towards Pawan, and she miraculously gets her voice back while trying to call out his name. They thankfully meet again. The end. Bajrangi Bhaijaan is a 2015 Indian Hindi-language comedy-drama film directed by Kabir Khan, who co-wrote the film. It tells the story of Pawan, aka Bajrangi, who embarks on a journey to take a mute 6-year-old Pakistani Muslim girl, Rashida, separated in India from her parents, back to her hometown in Pakistan.